That is, Tyler, can you see all of the paper here?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, you can see my finger here?
Yep.
That thing, perfect. All right, I got a couple of other stuff for you guys here.
Is that a new ring on your finger?
I'm sorry, what?
Is that a new ring on your finger? I'm just kidding.
No ring. No, you will never see a ring here, Tyler. I would rather have it chopped off than have a ring here. All right. So, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but if you have to do it at the right time. Anyway, let me see if I can get my name right here. All right, couple of more minutes. Wait for the rest of the class. Good, we got 41 so far. Okay, 43, awesome. All right, 44, beautiful. Let's see. Chat.
I think 44 people is what was sitting in the other session before.
Oh, I see. So isn't this a new session here?
I was able to log into the other one and I was sitting there for a minute.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Great. So people are being sort of like able to get in no matter what.
Yeah, it was there. It's just
that is really weird. But anyway, it just disappeared off the list of my meetings, the class meetings. But anyway, so looks like 46, good. When we get up to about 50, we can get going.
Yeah, I think there was a total of 53 maps in the other one.
Oh, I see. Are they migrating over or?
Yeah, we're migrating.
Okay, great, thanks. So they're finding out what's going on. I have no idea. I went to Zoom. I ended the office hour, wanted to go to class, and the class was gone. Perfect. All right. Let's see. We got 47. I hope they can end up here soon. Did you look at the solution to the test? Anyone?
Yeah.
Well, how was it, Erica? Good to see you guys.
The last two, not fantastic.
Not to worry. I got you. Not to worry. I'm going to make an announcement. There are a few things we can do to help everybody out. So just hang in there. Things will be fine. And the final exam is going to be take home one problem. And it's going to be, you're going to have a whole day to do it. Day, like 12 hours. One problem. So it's a gift, in other words.
You said a whole week?
I'm sorry, what?
You said a whole week?
No, a whole day is a gift. A week to do one problem.
Thank you.
I think we can go to Mars and back in that period. All right. Are the other guys, by the way, migrating from the other class? I don't know where the hell that class is, but got 50. Perfect. They're getting the hang of it. Let's see. Did you guys use the new code to get in?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So the new code works. Perfect. All right, guys. First, welcome. I hope you're safe and sound. Now, I haven't graded the test number 2. I looked at them, and having been in this education business, this academic business since 1969, 51 years, I can just tell how the test went by just cruising through the test. Overall, it wasn't great. It's not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on anyone. It's really a reflection on the situation we find ourselves in. This remote learning, remote this, and we're learning how to cope with all these chaotic changes. So don't sweat test number 2, or actually test number 1 for that matter either. Your final exam is going to be it's going to consist of only one problem, simple problem based on what we're going to do today. If you have any questions, of course, you let me know at any time. It's going to be a take-home test. You're going to have 12 hours to do one simple question. So it's a gift to help you out. This morning, I received, besides 111 other emails, an email from the Office of Enrollment, the grading people. And they're setting up a pathway for assigning credit, no credit. This is my suggestion to you guys. A lot of you guys, and you can contact me privately if you wish, personally, to seek my advice. A lot of you need to take that option of credit, no credit. It will be credit, if you know what I'm talking about. So I would take that option. That option has all the benefits and no disadvantages. What are the benefits? You get credit and you pass the course. Your credit, no credit does not affect your GPA in any way. So in other words, you go through, you go on your future classes with no detrimental effect upon what happened here, if you follow what I'm getting at. So this option would be a great option for a big chunk of the class. Again, if you need to talk to me about it, let me know by all means. Does everybody know what we're talking about? Or somebody who doesn't know what we're talking about here? Please, don't be shy to ask. Everyone's okay with it. All
Hey,
right,
I have a question
Yeah.
for you.
please, go ahead, Tyler.
Do jobs look at that as something to consider when hiring?
I just talked to another student discussing this point. This is the way it works, Tyler, in the real world. You go for an interview, or they see your score or whatever, your resume. 99% of the decision is based on who you are. Does it make sense, Tyler?
Yeah.
In other words, if I'm going to put myself as an employer, I own a big, good engineering business. You show up and I see you. You're answering my questions effectively and on the dot with no hesitation. You're in command. I'll ask you a couple of simple technical questions. You answer them in the same manner. Am I going to say, I don't want Tyler because of a credit 20 years ago?
Because of the
make sense?
coronavirus.
Sorry, what? Yeah.
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm giving you like inside hints. It doesn't, Darius, is that you, master's program? Darius?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that too.
Okay, go ahead. I had that same question asked by someone else about the master's program. It will not affect it, in my opinion, in any way. Why? Because number one, there are thousands and thousands of other students around the whole country, if not around the world, going through the same process. Your master's program is not going to hold you back saying, you know what, 5 years ago, you got credits, so we're going to hold you back. Does that make sense? Huh? You follow what I'm getting at, Darius? All right, now, here's the deal. Don't sweat it. It's not going to affect anything. No one's going to care. What I suggest you should do, just concentrate on getting through in this semester, go through this semester, and I'm doing all I can, as I'm sure you understand, to get you through. You will get through. So don't sweat credit, no credit, ramifications down the line for your master's program, for your job. It won't affect it in any way. Number one is you in a job interview, how you come across, and if you can do the job. That's it. They couldn't give a damn if 5-10 years ago you happen to have a credit, no credit on your transcript somewhere. Does that answer your question there, guys?
Yeah. So,
Uh,
like, say you were in the situation as a student. So, if you weren't, so you're definitely going to keep all the A's.
Yes. You see, it doesn't affect your GPA.
And anything not in A, would you just go credit?
That's what I would do. I mean, it's a gift. That's what I would do.
Okay.
You follow what I'm getting at? That's what I would do. It's a total gift.
But we can also make the decision after the grades are posted. So if we are thinking we're getting an A, but we get a B, we can choose that after, right?
Yes, but here's the point, Erica. When I suggest, not to you, to anyone, that take the credit, it means take it. Follow what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Because you either have a D or an F. I can't be more clear than this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm doing this to help you out. I'm not doing it to help myself. Do you understand, you guys? I'm doing it to help you guys out. So when I say take it, take it. All right. Does that answer your question, Erica?
Yeah.
Erica? All right, good. All right, now, do you have any questions about test number 2 before we get started here, guys? Was it something you hadn't seen before? Wasn't it just like you had seen before? No?
Yeah,
Only-
it was.
All right, it was fair. But again, I understand this remote stuff gets you nervous. I would be in the same situation as you, so I do understand your situation. So right now, let's go over this topic. If you have no more questions, it's a very basic topic, and we can go through it very easily. I have the notes. After the lecture, I'm going to email you these notes. So don't sweat it. Don't panic. You will get the notes right after the lecture. In the meantime, I'm going to share my screen here and I'm trying to open up the file right here. Go to the first set of notes here that I have for you, if I can get to them. Here we go. I have them right here. Okay, let's now go to share and let me know if you see what's going on here. There we go. Can you see this beam deflection theory page?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Is it clear? Is that big enough, or do I need to change anything?
You could zoom in.
Looks good.
Yes, I'm sorry, good to go?
If you could zoom in a little bit.
Zoom in, let me see.
If you hit Control plus.
Oops, Control plus. Let me try that. Okay, good job. Thank you. Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. Now, guys, what we're going to do is look at the deflection of beam through the lens of one of the methods. What we have done here is essentially take a beam you have seen before, a simply supported beam, and loaded it up. I have a hinge and whoops, I can't get a circle here. Let me see here. Maybe I can get a circle here. There you go. Perfect. Now, it's nothing you haven't seen before yet. What we're going to do is take this beam, load it, doesn't matter what kind of load, and then concentrate on one little segment, as if it's this little segment on the beam, an infinitely small segment. That little red segment here is this part of the beam, and it's under a moment force, moment. It naturally wants to curve. When it curves, it goes through these geometrical changes. What we need to concentrate on right now is these simple elements. The length of this segment, dx, the angle it forms with its point, the focus of the radius of curvature. Rho is your radius of curvature. And then try to somehow, this is the key here, guys. I don't want to bore you too much with the theory because you won't be asked to do the theory anyway, but just to let you know where these where these theories lead us to, which is the Holy Grail at the end. I just want you to understand that what we're trying to do here is one thing and one thing only. What is it? To marry the geometry to the force through the moment. So we got two worlds, not the virtual or real world, not those. These are two different new worlds. The force through moment and the geometry. In other words, what we want to do is when you apply a force to a beam, how does it curve or change its axis or rotate about an axis? In other words, what happens physically to that beam? Well, from the geometry, the L, the C, neutral axis, all that good stuff, and the axial loading, this is the force, the loading world. This is the geometry world. We want to try to do what? We want to marry these two worlds. Geometry to force. And when we do, we need a linchpin, something that helps us do that. What is that linchpin? It's sigma, the stress that helps us marry these guys together. And I'm going to go down here. If I could move this guy, let me see if I can move it now. Now it doesn't want to move. Oh, here it is. I want to go to the next page, and here's the linchpin right here, guys. This is the linchpin right here. That formula, which is this guy right there. That guy right there. Sigma equals mc over I. What does it have? It has the force element, C, mc. C is the geometrical element. We slap the geometry and the forces together, we end up with this guy here. This is your curvature. Geometry, this is your force. E is your Young's modulus. I is your moment of inertia. So we have a perfect marriage of geometry and force. Now, here's a problem. This curvature, radius of curvature, which is essentially the distance of the curved beam right here, rho, the distance of the curved beam here from the focus or the center of the radius of curvature is useless to us, because when we apply loads to a beam, we don't know where the focus is. We don't know where that center is, and it doesn't help us at all. But guess what we do? We'll take this radius of curvature and recast it as curvature itself by just taking the reciprocal. From your calculus, not to worry, you won't have to do any calculus here right now. We know curvature is the reciprocal of radius of curvature, and it can be now related to what? Y and X. This is the Holy Grail right here. So what do? We now, armed with this equation, can go ahead and put the geometry and the force worlds, the two worlds of geometry and force together using not radius of curvature, which is useless for us, but something in terms of X and Y. Why? Because X is your X-axis, and any deflection in the beam here, any deflection in the beam here, which we're going to call delta, is manifested through the other angle on the the other axis in the Cartesian coordinate system. What is that? Y. So now we're in heaven. Why? Because we got X and Y, geometry and the force married together through this equation. And notice, because the curvature is calculus, by the way, remember, it's extremely small. Guess what happens to dy by dx. dy by dx is the slope. If I drew a tangent, it would be a slope, theta. The dy by dx is so small that it can be assumed to be 0. So what does that do for us? 1 plus 0, take it to any power, will give you 1 to any power, which is 1. So all the denominator disappears, and we end up with this guy, equaling to the second derivative of the curvature of the beam. Then what happens? Then we go, wait a minute. From upstairs here, we had 1 over rho equals m over ei. So we literally substitute m over ei for 1 over rho, and we end up with the Holy Grail. This is it, guys. This is the essence of the deflection of a beam. Now, why is this important? Let me go downstairs here. We end up, let me clear this for you. We end up with this guy right here. Let me see if I can highlight it for you and expand. All right. Here you go. Notice, once I get my equation, the second derivative, which is, remember, d2y over dx squared equals m over ei, I then do what? I then go ahead and integrate it once and end up with this guy. And then what happens? I get the slope of the curvature of the beam. I integrate it once more, and I get the final result, the deflection of the beam at any point. So you get the slope and the deflection. Why did I have to differentiate twice? Because if you recall, what is the final equation? It's right here. Moment over ei equals the second derivative of the y, the deflection over x, any point along the length of the beam. So to get to deflection, I have to integrate twice to get rid of these two 2's. And that, my friends, is the theory behind finding the deflection of a beam. Now, here's the deal. This is what I like you guys to remember, guys. I like you guys to remember this point. No matter what theory we use, or what method or application, we have many different theories or applications to develop the deflection of a beam. At the end of the day, remember, we have to go back to one equation and one equation only. What is that one equation? It's this guy right here, this one right here. At the end of the day, the deflection of the beam, doesn't matter what method you use, will always depend on what? M over EI. Now let's go over this. When you integrate, you're finding what? The area under a graph. So what does that mean then? That means at the end of the day, when I want to find the deflection of a beam, at the end of the day, I am going to integrate M over EI twice. Notice, I integrated once, I get the slope. I integrate the slope, I get the deflection. I'm going to get the same equation integrated twice to get to the deflection. That's it. Doesn't matter what theory we use. And the easiest way to learn this, guys, is to go over a very simple example, which I have here for you guys. Again, I'm going to email these sets of notes for you guys. Just pay attention, and please, if you have any questions, ask me. Here's, no problem. Sounds good. All right, guys. Can you see this guy? Do you want me to expand it a little? Let me see. Is that better, or can you see the whole page?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. This is a simple cantilever beam, guys. We have only one simple one simple load, one load. We call it P. It could be F, it could be anything. We use a different color. It could be F, it could be anything. It's applied at the tip of this cantilever beam. So, going back to what we learned, the deflection of a beam is what? d2y over dx squared equals m over ei. All I need to do is to do what then? Get the damn moment equation divided by ei, integrate it twice, I'm there. I'm at deflection. So let's go ahead and see what we can do here. We notice this cantilever beam has a load, P, it could be any load, by the way, and it's lying on the x-axis, and any movement up or down of this beam occurs along the y-axis. By that movement, what we mean is this guy right here. This guy right here. As the load is applied, I'm going to get a deflection, which we're going to call delta. The tip of this beam is going to bend down. So we're supposed to find delta. Well, delta occurs along what axis? Y. And I know the second derivative of m over ei provides me with delta. So what do I need to do? I need to develop what m is. E is a constant, Young's modulus. I is a constant, it's the moment of inertia. So these are constants. I can literally move these guys outside of the integration sign. What I have to do then? The only task, guys, the only tasks you have in using this method, and that's the beauty of this method, is to come up with the moment equation. Well, how do I do that? I'm going to clear this up for you guys now. You go ahead and do a cut, just like you've seen before. At a cut, just like before, we have shear and moment. So what do? I arbitrarily take my cut at a distance x from the tip of this beam. Then what do? I go ahead and take a moment at this point with this load applied to the tip. Let's see. What would the moment look like? Look at this. If I take a moment here, I would have what? P times x positive plus m positive equals 0. So what is my moment equation? My moment equation is right here. Look at this m. It's the same m here. I took out ei outside of the integral sign. Why? Because they are constant. Remember, it's 1 over ei. And then what do? Replace m with negative px. Negative px. P times x. When I solve for m, it comes out negative. That's it. Now what do? I integrate it, and I get the slope. And somebody may ask, what the hell is the slope? The slope, my friends, is this guy right here. As the beam bends, the slope would be the angle this beam, deflected beam, forms. Whoops, maybe that's a bad color. Sorry. Here we go. The angle it forms with the tangent at any point on that slope. I could take a tangent here, form a slope. So theta is the angle of the tangent anywhere along the span of the beam. That's the slope. I integrate this. Let's see what we get. 1 over ei outside, because it's a constant. P is a force constant. X is your variable. So what do I get? P times x squared over 2 plus C3, remember, was your integration constant, the first one in slope and deflection. Because we go from load to shear to moment and then slope and deflection, we traditionally call the constant in equation here C3 and the final one C4 for deflection. The subscript has no effect on the answer, so don't sweat it. Here we go. We integrate this and we get theta equals 1 over EI negative px squared over 2 plus C3 over EI. Now what do I need to do? Integrate this guy to get to the Holy Grail. What is that? That's your deflection. You integrate theta one more time. What do I get? Look at this. Px squared over 2 becomes what? Px cubed divided by 3 times 2. Thus I got negative px cubed over 6. C3 is still a constant, but it's got to be taken care of. It has what now in front of it? An x. Why? Because x here is x to the 0, which equals 1. It still resides there, but when I integrate it, that 0 is what? Jacked up to 1, so it appears as x to the 1. This integration has its own constant of integration, and we call it C4. So, what have we done so far? Let me clear this up so we can see what's going on. We have now 2 equations, one for delta and one for theta. Guess what we need to do to finish the job? We need to get those pesky constants of integration out of the way. And this is how we do it. So pay close attention, guys. This is where you make your money in these types of problems. We need something that is definitively known about that beam. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through the examples for you. With a cantilever beam, I know I have a curvature here. But here's the problem. I don't know what the angle is here. That's what we're trying to find. Similarly, I know that I have a deflection delta. So guess what? That's what we're trying to find too. In other words, to knock out C3 and C4, I need to go to where x equals 0, one boundary, right here, or x equals L at the other boundary to knock out these constants of integration. When I go to x equals 0 here, nothing helps. Why? Because I don't know what theta and delta are. I don't know what the slope is. I don't know what the deflection is. But guess what? Things don't look too bad. Why? Because we can go to x equals L. And this is where you got to pay attention, guys. For cantilevers, we have only one support. Remember, what's the definition of a cantilever? Fixed at one support, free at the other. So we go to the fixed support and go, well, oh, wait a minute. At x equals L, theta is 0, right? Because it's fixed. There is no angle. It's perfectly horizontal. Similarly, the deflection is 0. There is no movement along the y-axis. So we say, wow, now those two conditions, these are conditions we can use to knock out C3 and C4. Look at this. At x equals L, theta is 0. So you go over here and say, okay, theta equals 1 over EI times negative of px squared. What is x here? 0. So that this term becomes 0. What is the angle? 0 at x equals, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Here you go. At x equals L, angle equals 0. Now what do? Substitute x equals L. We're going to substitute x equals 0 for the deflection. Sorry about that. Here we go. What do? I just solved these guys for C3. So what do? This side 0. I move this term over here and solve for C sub 3. And then in the next page, you will see what C sub 3 will equal to. What do I do now? Well, I have C sub 3. I have all the variables. Now I have a real equation for theta. Now I go to delta. What do I do with delta? I go again back to L because I know definitively delta equals to 0, the deflection is 0 at L, I substitute what here? L, I know definitively deflection is 0 at L, and C3 has an X in front of it, so I have to substitute X for L. And then what? I have C3 here. Well, C3 I've already determined from here. So I substitute that guy. I place him in here, so I have known values here, known values here. 0 is a known value, so I can solve for C sub 4. This, my friends, is what we do all the time in this method. Just going up and down to see what the constants of integrations are. Like we discussed before, here we go. C sub 3 equals this guy, because we have the value from setting those conditions. Then we slap them on to the total equation right here, and we get the full equation for the slope. You've seen this before, negative px squared over 2. This is your C, C3. And then what do? I do the same thing for the deflection. At x equals L, the deflection of the beam is 0. So I go to my equation, and I say, wait a minute, this is where C sub 3 was. I'm sorry, C sub 3 was, right here. So I substitute C sub 3 for this guy, which was what? PL squared over 2EI here. And I have C4 still to be determined. So what do I do now? Substitute x equals L and go through the same routine. Solve for C sub 4. And C sub 4 happens to look like this ugly guy right here. But nothing to worry about. It's all mathematical. Very basic stuff. Here's my C sub 4. Then finally, I take this guy and place it into my delta equation. And you end up with those final equations. Now, let's go over these equations to see if they make sense. Here's a simple trick, guys. Remember this trick. I want to see if these equations make sense. So what do? I look at the terms here, one at a time. EI, 1 over EI applies to every term. That's a slope equation. What is important to check is what's inside here. F is your force. I'm sorry, P is your force. It appears here. So it's a constant. Nothing to worry about. X and L are the ones you want to worry about to see if everything jives with the equation. Look at here. 2 is a cardinal number, so it's a constant. We don't care about it. X has a what? A power of 2. It's any value along the length of the beam. And notice this 2 jives with this 2. In other words, the dimensions, the units of these two terms are exactly the same. So that's a little trick I'm trying to teach you to use to see if you did your equations correctly. Similarly, we'll test here. We have 3 terms, big deal, nothing to worry about. What is the dimension for x? 3. Look at this. L squared times x. X squared, that's 3. And then here, PL squared, PL cubed. So guess what happens? The length dimension, each term has a length dimension of 3. So all of these guys jive. Now, finally, what do all these things mean to us? This is what they mean. Armed with these 2 equations, I can now go ahead and find the slope at any point along the span of the beam. Say, for example, my beam was 10 feet long. I want to know what is the slope of that beam at 5 feet. So what do? I substitute 5 right here. And I want to know what the deflection is at 5 feet. I substitute 5 there. That, my friends, is it. It's that straightforward. Of course, I know it's a lot of new material. You need to go over that stuff. So I have another example here for you guys, which I'm going to share. It's right here Let me see if I can get it for you guys. Right here. This is straight out of the internet, which I found for you. By the way, you have this in your textbook and the solution manuals I've already given you. Now, let's see. How do I deal with a simply supported beam? Here we go. Can you see this guy here? Let me see if I can, oops, bad move. Here we go. Here we have a simply supported beam. Here we go. Simply supported beam, hinge and a roller. Nothing you haven't seen before. It has, whoops, here. It has a load P, arbitrary load, doesn't matter what it is, applied at mid-span, L/2 and L/2. I am. All right. The load is applied at L/2 at mid-span. We want to find the equations. This guy, the double apostrophe is your theta. That's your equation. Sorry. This is your equation that once integrated gives you your theta. You integrate this again one more time and we get to the Holy Grail, which is your delta deflection. Now, our task is to look at this beam and to see if we can come up with an equation for the slope and the deflection of this beam so that we could do what? So that we could go ahead and clean this up for you, so that we could go ahead and find the slope, meaning what? Look at the curvature here, guys. I can find the slope anywhere along that shape of the beam. In other words, I can do a tangent anywhere along the span of this beam to find its slope. But that may not be too helpful for us. What is really what we're looking for? It's the delta, the deflection. Say, for example, somewhere here. At mid-span, I want to know what is the deflection at mid-span of this beam. So what do? We go to the beam and remember, like before, what is our task to find? Our task is to go back to our equation to find the equation for the moment. The equation for the moment. Once I find the equation for the moment, as you'll see here, then what do? Then I can go ahead and integrate twice to get to the final destination. So what do? You go to the beam, you take an arbitrary cut after the load, and simply, just like before, put in your shear and your moment. It's nothing new. Everything's something you've seen before, guys. Nothing's new. So no need to panic. Then what do? I take a moment at M, forgetting about everything behind me. If I take a moment at M, let's see what happens. Now I'm going to transfer. I know it's kind of tough. I'm going to handwrite this down so that you can see it. I'm going to go to the equation here on the paper and go to the camera momentarily and see what we get here. All right. Okay. I'm just trying to set up my papers here, guys. Just hang in there. Okay. There we go. Can you see my camera, you guys, now? Manny,
Yes.
Manny, can you see my hand, guys? I already
You
said.
can.
All right,
Yes.
thank you. All right, guys. I know it's kind of confusing at the beginning. This is what we're going to do. Let's go back to that guy. I'm going to make it super easy for you guys to see. We're going to go to our beam. And remember, what do I need from my beam? I need to come up with an equation. Let's call this P so we're consistent. Remember, at the end of the day, what is the key? The key is this equation right here. D2y over dx squared equals m over EI. EI are going to be constant, at least for us here in this class. We are trying to find what? This guy right here, the moment equation, so that I could integrate it twice to get the deflection equation. When I go to this guy, remember, this is perfectly at mid-span, L over 2, L over 2. And the length is obviously L. The support reaction, as you can imagine, is what? P over 2. Perfectly symmetrical. P over 2. So what do? I'll go to my beam and say, hey, I'll take an imaginary cut here. Let's call this distance x, because we need x to be in our equation so that it can jive with y, so I could get my delta. So let's go ahead and complete a cut like this here. This is my cut. I have P, the load here, which is at L over 2, mid-span. I have a force here, which happens to be the support reaction. Big deal, nothing to worry about. And then I have this distance. What is this distance? This is your x, arbitrary distance here to the cut, x. So what do? I'll say, hey, I know I have shear and a moment. Remember the cut method? Nothing's new. Everything's the same as before. So what do? I just go ahead and take a moment at this point to find the equation of the moment from x equals 0 at this point all the way to my arbitrary x. So let's take a moment here, guys. Sigma m at the cut, this is my cut, equals what? When you take everything counterclockwise as positive, equals to 0. So let's take our fingers here. Let's take a moment here. What do I get? I get P over 2, creating a negative moment at the cut. So it's negative times the moment arm. What's the moment arm here, guys? It's x. So that takes care of this force. But I have to contend with this guy. I'm still here at the cut. So I have to find the moment due to P. What is the moment due to P? It's positive. And it's at what location? Well, it's this far from the cut. What is that distance? That distance, guys, is what? X minus L over 2. So it's X minus L over 2. Very simple stuff, guys. X minus L over 2 gives me this little moment arm. And P is going in what direction? Clockwise, positive. So it's P times X minus L over 2. Equals what? Well, we still have to contend with these guys. What do I have? V, but it goes right through my cut. This shear force creates no moment. But does this guy show up in the equation? Yeah, that's a moment. and it's in the positive direction. So I have to write what? Plus m equals 0. Now, all I got to do is move these guys to the other side of the equation and get my equation for the moment, which equals what, guys? Equals a half p times x, that's this guy, positive now because it's on that side, minus p times x minus L over 2. There you go. That's our moment equation. That's it. Now what do I need to do? Substitute this guy over here and integrate it twice to get theta and then delta. That's it. That's the total process every single time. So let's see if we can see this now. Any questions, by the way, guys? Don't be shy to ask questions. Everyone's okay with? Yes, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Jasmine, go ahead, please. How are you?
Hi, I'm
Hi.
good. So will you want us to will you give us oh, I want to know the deflection at 5 feet or something?
Exactly, yes. Because if we didn't, you wouldn't have X here, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have any place to sort of to use as your variable here. So that will be given to you.
Okay,
Every-
and then E and I.
I'm gonna make it easy like the truss deflection. Don't worry about, I'm just gonna say E and I, that's it.
Okay.
Do you follow what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
In other words, your answer would be whatever it is over EI. No need to worry about it.
Okay.
All right. But so far, is it beginning to make sense? I know it's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, it is.
All right. I'm glad for the, I'm thankful for the feedback. Thank you. By the way, I'm going to give you more and more examples. The PDF in the homework has it, your textbook. You can go on the internet. There are tons and tons of examples like this. But all I wanted to do was to set up the fundamentals that any method in the deflection area is based on one equation. This guy right here. That's it. This is the big mama. Gives birth to every theory based on deflection of beams. Does it make sense, Jasmine?
Yeah.
All right.
It is.
So in other words, no matter what they tell you later on, or if you're working, when you're working, hopefully, they'll tell you, oh, use the conjugate beam method, use the double integration method, use the moment area method. All of them are based on this. Find the moment equation, divide by EI, integrate twice. That's it. In other words, this process takes you to integrate once, slope, integrate twice, deflection. It's the same over and over again. So having learned this now, they can throw you a new method some guy or some gal called Joe or Susie come up with tomorrow. You know automatically it's going to be based on this guy right here. It's not going to be any different. So you have the fundamental knowledge to plow through it and understand exactly what's going on. All right, Jasmine, and the rest, everyone's okay with it?
Oh, Amir,
Yes, please. Smiley, go ahead.
you may have answered this, but is there any particular reason why you have to make the cut after the force or after the applied load to find the moment equation?
I was going to go over that. Thank you for reminding me. This is the thing. I could use it. I don't want to make a mess of the diagrams too much, but I could have had the cut here before the force, right? But the point is, in this case, because this force doesn't show up in this equation, I can only use this m this far. Does it make sense, Miley?
Yeah.
To include everything, it's better to go all the way past the force. If I had stopped here, I would have had to stop here too. So it means I would have had to do two steps. This comes from experience, which I'm not going to make you, go through the hell of like, oh, solve a problem through 20 years of experience. No, but this is a great question you asked. But you realize if I went here, this P x minus thing would not appear in the equation,
Right.
right? So that means I'll be limited to what? X equals 0 to just before P, which is midspan.
I see.
Do you see that? It would give me the deflection at that point, but nothing past this.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Right.
All right. Very good. That's one of the downsides, by the way, of the double integration method. It's very, very simple and useful, but the problem is it is not really good if you have a ton of loads. Why? Because you got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, include everybody and at any point. By the way, most computer applications, when they deal with handling deflection, they use the double integration method. Why? Because it's very analytical and computers don't give a damn how much work they have to do. So they can knock this out in milliseconds, no matter how many points. Does that make sense, Smiley?
Yeah.
All right. Did you understand these parts, by the way? Smiley.
Yes.
All right. Now, keep that in mind. I'm going to go and now share that same screen. Now you should know exactly where everything came from. Here we go. I'm going to share the screen. Here you go. Do you see that's the same example? Do you see where these numbers came from now? I mean, these values? These are exactly what I derived for you guys. Then what do we do? Integrate once right here. Integrate this equation once we get this guy. That's your slope. By the way, you can have EI on this side or divide by EI on that side. It doesn't make any difference. Integrate again. You get the Holy Grail. That, my friends, is the equation we're looking for. That's for delta, the deflection. Now, here's the only area where you need to, I hate to use the word memorize, just remember these conditions I'm going to give you. Remember, for deflection and the slope in a cantilever beam, the only thing you know are these things. Theta, the slope, and delta, the deflection at the support, both equal to what, guys?
0.
0, right. Why do I need to know those conditions? So I can solve for these pesky what? Constants of integration. In a simply supported beam, guess what? Do I know the slope here, guys? What do you think? Anyone? Don't be shy. Yes. No, unfortunately not. Who was that?
Teresa.
Teresa. I'm glad you answered. Do you realize that the beam curvature is right here? Can you see the dashed line, Teresa?
Oh, okay. So it's actually steepest at that point.
Exactamundo. Beautiful. You hit it. What's the slope here, Teresa?
That would be 0.
Right. What's the slope here? We have no idea. But it's the steepest, like you said. So unlike the cantilever beam, I cannot go to the support and say, oh, theta is 0. But
So
guess
would it
what?
be 0 at the center?
I'm sorry, go ahead. Who's the...
So would it be 0 at the center?
Yes, in this case, it's at the center, exactly, midspan, right? So this is what a little bit of memorization and experience comes in. And I'm going to help you out this way. Cantilever, when the beam bends, we have no idea what goes on at the tip. No idea. Where x equals, 0 here. But at x equals L, right here, that's my x-axis. At x equals L over here, guess what? In a cantilever, I know two things. Theta, the slope is 0, delta is 0. Those are the two conditions I'm going to use for knocking out these two pesky constants of integration. However, here I'm not dealing with a cantilever beam, but I'm still not at a loss. Why? Because I have extra knowledge here. What is the extra knowledge? I don't know what the theta is, but can you tell me what the delta is here? That's the
Is
delta.
delta is 0?
Yes, yes, Teresa. Delta is 0. How did you know that, Teresa?
Well, so it can't deflect if that support reaction is holding it up.
Right. Okay. Remember, deflection is what? Movement up and down the y-axis, right? If I am tied at the support, look at it, I'm tied down. Can I go up and down? Teresa?
No,
No.
not at the support.
Right. So what does that mean? What's the delta here?
So it has to be 0 there.
Right. Is the delta here 0? No, that's the one we're trying to find. But what can you tell me about the roller here?
The delta there is also 0?
Yes, because remember, this guy is what? Preventing me from moving along the y-axis. So I'm also constrained to a delta equals 0. Now, how many conditions do I have? 2. At x equals 0, what is delta? 0. What's the other condition, Teresa? Right here. What is
So at x equals L?
You got it. You got it. At x equals L, they use uppercase L, big deal. At x equals L, delta is 0. These are the two definitive conditions I'm going to use to knock out C1 and C2. Sometimes, like George mentioned, by looking at the diagram, you can knock out another condition. It just happens to be this guy right here at mid-span, right here. Because this is a perfectly symmetrically loaded beam, we know the maximum slope, or I'm sorry, the maximum deflection occurs here at mid-span. But we don't know what the value of the deflection is. But we know the slope is 0 because I'm going from a negative slope and switching over to a positive slope as I climb against the curvature of the beams. Therefore, I must have gone through a slope of 0 at midspan. So over here at midspan, just for this beam, not for any other beams, just in this, you got to treat them each individually. I can say what? At x equals L over 2, what is the theta here, guys?
0.
0. There you go. Now, it just happens from experience that we have now knocked out how many conditions? 1, 2, and 3. I use these conditions, like x equals, say here, x equals 0, for deflection. This is the deflection. I plug in x equals 0 here, wherever I see x, and then solve for C2 or C1. And then I take that value up to C1 to knock out what C1 is. Or I can do it directly at C1, depending on what kind of an equation I'm dealing with. Let's look over here. Let me get rid of this mess. What do we know about the slope at x equals 0? We don't know what the slope is. What is the slope at x equals L? We don't know. But we know at x equals L over 2, the slope is 0. So I can go to the slope equation and substitute what for x? L over 2. L over 2. And then equate that to what? The slope is 0. And solve for what? Solve for the value I get out of these when x is equal to L over 2. And then substitute that C1 here to complete the equation for the deflection. That is about as simple as it gets, guys. Let me see if I can go over another example for you guys. Let me clear this up.
Oh, wait, Amir.
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Is there a reason? So in that first equation there, is there a
Is there-
reason? Yes, that that like they didn't simplify, like combine the x terms?
Here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. The reason they didn't do it, you could combine them, obviously, definitely. When we finish the results on the next page, I'll show it to you. The reason they didn't do it is that they wanted you to see where this came from and where this came from.
Okay. So
You follow?
so the next line,
Yes.
instead of combining them, they just integrated. And
Yes. Great question. Great question. Because when you look at this, you can simplify it. But the thing is, they wanted you to see that this guy here is from this force. This guy here is from that force, so that you could picture where the moment equation came from.
Okay, thanks.
All right, sure. Good
Professor,
question. Yes, please. Who's this?
Myra.
Nara, how are you?
Hi. For the second equation, when you said x equal to L over 2,
Yeah.
doesn't
Yes, go ahead, please.
for the first term, well, for the second equation, when you plug in x equals L over 2, it doesn't equal to 0 because the first term still applies, right?
Yeah, let me go over it one more time. Hold on. Let me get my pencil here. So this is my third equation, right, Myra?
Yes.
All right. Now, what do we know about that equation? At L over 2, we know theta is 0, right?
Yes.
By the way, this EI you can divide. You understand that, right? The constant, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this equals 0. That's another great question, Myra. Good question, you guys. So what it means is, it doesn't necessarily mean this whole thing is going to be equal to 0. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
C1 could be something, as you're going to see in a minute, or it could be 0. It's possible. But it doesn't necessarily mean that because theta is 0, that equation is going to give you 0.
Okay, I see.
You follow what I mean? It doesn't mean that all of these terms are going to disappear because the theta is 0. It just allows you to solve for C1. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Beautiful question. Good job. Now let's see if we can go to the next page. Let me clear this and see what we got here. Look at this. Before we go to the next page, exactly what we've been talking about. Look at this. At x equals 0, y equals 0. What is your y, guys? That's your deflection. This is the condition that they used, notice, to find C2. Why? Because look, when I plug in x equals 0 here, when I plug in x equals 0 into this equation, remember this is equal to what? This is equal to the deflection. At x equals 0, what is the deflection? 0. Let's plug in 0. If I plug in 0 for x here, I get 0 here. If I substitute x here, what do I get? 0. 0. So what do I get here? C2 equals 0. So what does that mean? That means C2, that constant, will not appear in your deflection equation. All right, now, whoops, let me get clear everything out. Now look what happened. At x equals L, remember? X equals L. What else do we know at x equals L? Deflection is still 0 here. So what do? We use L now to find C1. Look at this. At x equals L, y is 0. What is y? This is the equation for the deflection. I set it to 0, substitute x equals L, and what do we get? Da, 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 da. And then we get what? These terms right here. We get these two terms. Notice they are the same term except the coefficients are different. PL cubed, 1/12 minus 1/48 gives you 1/16. And then you have CL, C1L. You have an extra L here in front of this guy. Divide both sides by L, and you end up with L squared. So in other words, this guy is my C1. Now what do I do? Wherever you see C1, plug this guy in. And if you recall, in front of the X, we had C1. Right here, C1 in front of the X. C2 was 0, so your equation simply simplifies to, let me clear this up for you guys. Your equation simplifies to this guy right here. So what does that mean? That means armed with this equation, guys, I can find the deflection anywhere along the span of the beam. Let's check it out. At x equals 0, the deflection should be equal to 0. Let's see. 0, 0, 0. Yep. If I want to find the deflection at mid-span, what do? Wherever you see x, substitute x equals L over 2, and then simply solve for them. And this is what we did here. Where does the maximum deflection occur on this beam? At mid-span. So what do? Plug in x equals L over 2, and here it is, the maximum, Y maximum, when you simplify everything, is equal to negative PL cubed over 48 EI. This is, by the way, a very famous equation because of that simple equation of one load applied at mid-span. Incidentally, that negative sign, by the way, don't worry about it too much. What it means is that the beam is deflecting downwards. Remember the curvature? The beam is deflecting downwards. That's all. That's where that negative sign comes in. All right, now let's see. We have another example right here with the simply supported beam, same beam. But this time, instead of a point load, we have a distributed load. Big deal. Here we go. What do we need to do? Find what? M, the moment. Let me see if I can set up that moment for you guys again. How do I find the moment? Here we go. I'm going to do this for you guys again on a piece of paper. And hopefully, we should be done. I'm going to switch to my pad here. I'm going to stop sharing here, guys. I'm going to switch to my pad. All right, here we go. Where does that equation come from? Just like before, nothing special or new for you guys. You go to your beam. It's loaded with a continuous distributed load all the way through. It has a span of L, and the load here is W sub 0. Let's just call it W, save time. What the hell? It's nothing different. Can you see my drawing here, guys? Everyone's okay with it?
Yep.
All right, Mara, all right, okay. Now what do? Just like before, what is the ultimate goal here? I gotta find the equation for M. Why? Find the equation for M to slap it inside what? This guy, M over EI equals the second derivative of dy over dx squared. So what do I need to do? These are constants. Simply come up with the equation for the moment, integrate twice to find the deflection. Let's see. Let's go pick an arbitrary distance here. Let's call this guy X and find out what equation M will look like at the end of the day. All right, we're going to take our cut. I'm going to move the cut down here. What do I have here? I have my beam. I have my cut. This is the cut. Here, notice I have a support reaction. Let's call this guy A sub Y. and I've got a support reaction here, B sub y. What do I have? What else do I have? I have this support reaction, A sub y, and I have a chunk of that distributed load. So now what do? I go ahead and replace that cut with V, shear, and moment. Proceed to take a moment at the cut to come up with the equation of M, so I can go through the same routine. Plug it in here, integrate twice. All right, before I do that, we gotta find out what the hell's going on over here. What is the support reaction here? Well, it's very easy. What's the total load due to this guy, this distributed load? The total load is what? Total load equals WL, W times L. This system is perfectly symmetrical. So half goes here, the other half goes here. So what do you think this guy is? WL over 2. WL over 2. Total load divided by 2. So this guy equals WL over 2. Now what do? I'll just go ahead and take a moment at this point. Same way you've taken the moment so many times already. So nothing's new. So no need to sweat. Here we go. Slap your finger over here. Take a moment. What is the moment here? It's negative WL over 2 times, what is this distance? We said it's arbitrarily chosen as X to the cut. X to the cut times X. So that takes care of that term. Now, what do? We have to do what? Take care of this distributed load. The distributed load here was W. The total load to the cut due to the distributed load is what here? It's W times X. So, sorry about this. This is my WX, the total load. Placed where? At the centroid of this cut here. What is the centroid? It's at X. Right, X over 2. So when I take a moment here, what would I have then, Jasmine? WX times?
It would be positive.
Right.
WX times X over 2.
Perfect. Beautiful. So it'll be positive, right? Plus WX times X over 2. Plus, does this V show up?
No.
Does M show up?
Yes.
Yes. Equals 0. So just like before, what do? Move these guys to the other side and end up with the equation. Do you see how simple that is, guys? So it's nothing to worry about. It's that simple. Once you find M, that's it. The rest is purely mathematical. All we got to do is integrate and integrate to get the equation for delta. And then you can go anywhere along the span of the beam, plug in the value anywhere along the span of the beam, 1 foot, 2 feet, 8 feet, into this equation, and it'll give you the deflection at that location. It's that simple. Now let's go back to the drawing. So you'll see now where all of these came from. You're going to see them now beautifully in the example I found for you guys here. Right here. Do you see that now, guys? Where they came from? Half of WL over X, or, I mean LX, da 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 da. There it is. That's what we just solved. And then what? There it is. It's cleaned up. That's exactly what we had, if you recall. Now what do we need to do, guys? Integrate and?
Find the C1.
Beautiful. C1 and then C2.
C2.
Jasmine, what conditions can you tell me about this? It's not a cantilever, right? So I don't know what the deflection is or the theta is at any point unless I go to a location where I know definitively what's going on. So let's go over this. Jasmine, can you tell me at x equals 0, right? X equals 0. What is theta here?
We don't know.
Beautiful. Question mark. Do I know what delta is here?
0.
Beautiful. Can I use that condition? Yeah. Do I know what the theta is here?
No.
No. Beautiful. Do I know what delta is here?
Yes, 0.
0. I'll be happy. Yeah, because we've got 2 locations and 2 conditions. That's pretty damn good. Why? Because I have 2 constants of integration, 2 conditions. Guess what? I can definitely find the 2 unknowns. It's like algebra. 2 unknowns, 2 equations. All right, now, what do? In this case, because it's perfectly symmetrical, guys, there is one more. We are like gifted with one more. What about this location? Jasmine, Teresa, anyone?
Theta equals 0.
Beautiful, beautiful. What was it? Theta is, whoops, that was the ugliest theta in the world. Here you go. Theta is 0 at what location, guys?
L over 2.
Beautiful. How many conditions do we have now?
3.
Well, yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Are we happy? Super happy. Because the rest is just mathematical. And with our beautiful equation here, which I just showed you how we got, we do what now? We integrate once. That gives us our theta. Da-da-da-da. We got to get rid of this pesky guy. We will soon. And then we integrate again one more time. And what do we get? This guy. Beautiful. We got now 2 constants of integration. Let me ask you, which equation can I use first? Theta or delta, knowing these conditions?
I would say maybe delta.
Delta. Most of the time it would be delta. Very good. Because most of the time we're not gifted with this third condition because it's symmetrical. What if the load stopped somewhere here? The load. I wouldn't know. I could not state that the deflection is, I'm sorry, the theta is 0 at midspan. You couldn't do that. So this is kind of like a gift. So we rely on this, guys. Most of the time, you'll find that it's kind of backwards. You will be able to go to delta first, find C2 or C1, and then move back up here to get rid of C1, C2. In other words, sometimes you find this guy here and then move it back up there to find the other constant of the integration. So let's see. We are here. We know deflection is 0 at x equals 0. What do you think is going to happen to this term at x equals 0?
0.
What about here?
0.
Beautiful. What about here?
0.
So what does that tell us about C2?
It's 0.
0. There you go. Now you go over here. So what do I do with this guy? Not to worry. What do we do? This is another trick I'm going to show you. So stay with me, guys, here. If I go over here and plug in 0 and 0, well, it gives me C1 equals something, because at x equals 0, I don't know what theta is. So what do? I go to delta and say, wait a minute. When I use 0 here, when I use x equals 0, it does help me find C sub 2, but it also knocks out C1. So what do? This trick you're going to use a lot, guys. Use x equals what, guys? L. What's the deflection here at x equals L?
0.
0. But what's the benefit here? This guy is still equals 0, but the benefit is the x components are not knocked out. C1 remains. Can you see what I'm talking about here, guys?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah. C1 remains. So what does that mean? That means, oh, no big deal. C2 is 0. We found that out. So I used a term or a value for x that does not knock out C1. So what do? I know the deflection is 0 and x equals L over 2. I set this guy equal to 0. Substitute L over 2 for x. Doesn't knock out C1. C2 is already knocked out. So what do I end up with? I can solve for C1. So what do we learn? Use all the tools in your toolbox. What are they? X equals 0, deflection is 0. X equals L, deflection is L. X equals L over 2, theta is 0. Use anything you can to move up and down between these two equations to knock out the two constants of integration. Right, sounds good? All right. Now, any questions, guys? Don't be shy. Anyone?
So
Yes.
so we're either gonna see like a simply supported beam or a cantilever.
Exact. Something I'm going to make it super simple. All right? And you're going to have 12 hours, a whole day to do it.
When is our final gonna be? On
That's
the
what I,
final?
that's what I was going to ask you guys. I can give it to you next weekend, this weekend, whenever you want it, to make it easy so you can concentrate on your other finals, because ours is going to be take home. Do you prefer it? I'm sorry, not this weekend. Do you prefer it next weekend, meaning the first weekend of May, or do you prefer it the second weekend of May? Okay. Do you want to think about it, or you want to let
Let's
me
do it
know?
the first. Let's get it over with.
The
Is that your?
first.
Yeah, I say the
Okay.
first.
Okay. Is anyone against the first weekend of May?
Garrett Coker is.
Who? No, what is
People in the chat.
they're against it?
Yeah.
Here though.
Why? Why so when do you want it then?
I say we just get it over with.
Why don't we do this? Think about it. Look at your schedule. I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for you guys. You realize you're going to have 12 hours to do it. So it's basically, as you understand, it's a gift. So don't tell anyone about it. Just keep it to yourselves. What I would do is I would set up a Saturday or a Sunday free for you guys. You do the test like sometime in the morning. You'll have all day to work on it. It's going to be simple like this. You'll be done probably in about 35, 40 minutes. So my suggestion from my experience is perhaps you want to do it not this coming Saturday, the next Saturday, 2 Saturdays from now, or a Sunday if you want. It doesn't have to be. Or a Friday. It doesn't have to be a weekend. Just get it over and done with, and you'll feel much, much better for your, about it. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I think we should get a second to think about it and look at our schedule. And
Right. And then, yeah, and then we can discuss it next Monday.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Sounds beautiful. All right, now I have a homework for you guys to work on this. Do you want it? Hello, do you want this homework? Yes, go ahead. Anyone?
Yes.
All right. This will be very similar, as far as I know, for your take home, or something similar to this. Once you can handle these examples I went over, you can handle any of them. All right. Let's see if I can go back to our diagram. Can you see my chicken scratch here?
Yes.
All right. I even drew everything for you guys. I'm going to guide you along this. You have a simply supported beam, and it has a triangular load. We want to find the deflection, the equation of deflection for this beam. You have 3 kips per foot of load here, 0 load here because it's triangular, and it has a span of 10 feet. So what do? Easiest way to handle these problems, because you want what at the end of the day? I want the moment equation. I draw the load diagram. Remember, these arrows are downward, so they got to go below the x-axis. Actually, you know what? I'll give you the damn equation. I draw the load diagram and come up with the equation of the load so that I can integrate it once, come up with the shear equation, integrate it twice, come up with the moment equation, then I'm done. Integrate once, integrate twice, you're at the deflection. So what do we do this thing? Let's come up with this equation and then integrate, and you'll be done. Let's see. What would be the equation of this load line here, guys? What does that, okay, go ahead. What does that remind you of? Y equals?
X MS plus B.
MS plus B, right. What is the slope of this line?
3/10.
Beautiful. 3 divided by 10. Is that positive or negative, Erna?
Positive.
Yeah. 0.3x. Where's the intercept?
-3.
-3. That's it. We're done. Now what do? It integrated, I get the what equation? The shear. Integrate this guy, I get the moment. Now, what do we need to do? What I'd like you guys to do as a good practice, take this example, take what we've already done, integrate once, integrate twice. Once you integrate this guy twice, you're going to get the what equation? The moment. Take that moment and then do what? Divide it by EI and integrate it twice to get what? Delta. Do you see how simple that is? All right. I have a bunch of questions from this. Is that the last topic? Yes. Do you prefer the second weekend? I see people saying yes. Does it affect, this is about the credit, no credit. Does it affect your master's program? No. Or any other questions here? Anyway.
So we're
Yes,
so we're gonna decide on Monday then, what weekend we're gonna do the final on.
Yes, that'd be a great idea. Do you want to do it that way?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. And like, don't swear, the fun is going to be a gift. You understand what I'm getting at here for you guys, right?
Yes.
All right. So don't sweat it. It's a gift. And from what I've seen so far for test 2, it's much worse than test 1. So I would say 75, 80% of you guys, who knows, take the credit, even though you crapped out. I'm going to curve so much that you would get the credit, if you know what I'm talking about. So don't risk it. Don't argue. I'm trying to help you. It's not any work or anything from me. It's not because I'm going to jump off the building happy or anything because I'm taking advantage of you. No, I'm giving you the damn advantage. So when I suggest, take the credit, what does that mean? Take it. And again, it has no effect on your credit, on your grade. Either way, it has no effect on it. So it's a gift from the administration, from me, Amir, from everyone. So if you're in doubt, by all means, privately, do a meeting or email me and say, Amir, what should I do? When I say, Joe, Dave, Susie, take the credit, what do? You take the damn credit. All right. Any other questions, guys? Anyone? All right. Can you see this page?
What chapter? What chapter was this for the homework that we just went over?
This is God damn it, this is the deflection of beams. I think it's chapter 7 or 8. You can check. It's in the PDF, George. You can check it out.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Did you see this? Did you take a picture of it, or do you want me to? Can you see it? George, anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
did
can
you-
see it.
All right, did you take a pic? I'm sorry,
I
yeah,
took a picture.
did you take a picture or whatever?
Got it.
All right, guys, work on it. And there are PDF homework problems. It's not gonna get any more difficult than this. It's simple. Seriously, Manny, for example, Manny, does it make sense now how simple that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the Holy Grail? Find the damn moment equation. That's it. And integrate twice.
Mayor, will you be sending us these notes?
Yeah. Can you, Christopher?
Yeah.
I tell you what, just in case, as soon as I'm done with you guys, I'm gonna email it to you. Can you email me back that you received it?
Yeah, I'll email you.
All right. Thank you for your reminder. So I'm gonna send you all the information. And did you take a picture of this?
Yep.
All right. Work on this. We'll go over everything else on everything else we need to know on Monday. This was the last topic. This was it. This is the mother of all deflection theories. What you learned today is what will take you anywhere in deflection of beams. So you don't need to worry about it. Any method they use is based on the stuff we went over today. All right. Any other questions, guys? So anyway, yes, Jasmine, go ahead, please.
Sorry. So we should also go over problems that look like the one that you just did right now with like the triangular load.
Exactly. From now on, you don't have to worry about anything else. No trusses, no deflection of trusses, no this, no frames, nothing. All you need to worry about for the final is this. One question. 12 hours to do one question, very similar to what we went over today. Does it make sense, Jasmine? So in other words, the final exam is a gift to help you out to get the credit, if you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, guys. And you got this and that. So what I'm gonna do now, if you don't mind, if you have no questions, I'm gonna end the meeting. It's almost, what is that, 10 to 5. It's been almost 2 hours. With the office hours, it's been almost 4 hours here. So I'm gonna clear this out and end the meeting if you have no questions, and then right away email you the notes I went over today.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you, Jasmine, and for letting me. Anyone else? Don't be shy. Anyone else have any questions?
Thank you,
No, I
Marissa.
think-
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you, and don't be shy if you have any questions to contact me, guys. I'm here for you guys. All right, guys. Good luck, guys. Stay safe, and we'll talk anytime you want before Monday or on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good night, guys. Stay safe,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.